Stop buying tassels. You can make these in under 5 minutes. Today, I'm going to walk you through how to make these two different tassels basically the same way, one using yarn and one using embroidery floss. These tassels are super cute and they can be used for bookmarks, gifts, or tags. And honestly, this might be the most relaxing thing you do all day. These look fancy and they're actually quite simple to make. We're going to start off making the embroidery floss ones first because these ones have a really sleek look when they're finished. Once we're done those, we're going to jump over to the yarn ones for a more cozy look. All we need is some yarn and some embroidery floss, some scissors, and something to wrap it around. So let's jump in. I'm using a 3-inch piece of cardboard because I find that that's a good length after everything is tied up. Once we have our piece of cardboard and our floss, we're going to wrap it around 25 to 30 times. And this is just a simple process, so I'm going to quickly fast forward through this. Let me know in the comments below, what are you going to use these tassels for? Once you've wrapped it around, all you're going to do is cut the end off. You can leave it a little bit longer if you'd like. At the end, we're going to trim everything up so that it all looks nicely. The next thing that we're going to do before we take this off is we're going to grab another piece of floss, and we're going to make it about 10 inches long so that it can be enough to wrap around our tassel portion and still have enough space to wrap around either a bookmark or a tag or whatever we would like. So I'm going to quickly snip this. And now we're going to pull this through our cardboard piece here. And now we're going to just give this a knot and hide this knot here like this. And so I'm going to rotate this knot all the way around so that it hides within my bookmark here. Now we can trim this a little bit if you'd like so that we don't have any edges coming out. So that there's no visible bits there. And we're just going to attach this like so. Now we're going to just leave this on the side for a moment while we grab our next piece, and this next piece we're going to want it to be about 7 inches long so that we have 3 inches to go both sides of our tassel and then an extra little bit for wrapping. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to give it 8. And then we're always going to trim the ends of this so that everything is the same length so that it looks nice. Now that I have this piece, I'm going to just leave this here for a moment and I'm going to pull this off of my cardboard. And I'm going to lay this down on top of my workstation. I'm going to wrap this around from both sides. Now this can be a little bit tricky, but you're going to wrap it a few times around so that it gives it a nice finished look. And then we're going to tie a knot into this and give it a really good squeeze. And once you've got that first knot tied in, we're going to do one more for good measure so that it stays tied, because you don't want this untying itself later. And we're going to have this tied here. Now we're going to keep these two pieces off to the side for just a moment. Now we don't want these two ends showing and we don't want this knot showing either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a crochet hook and I'm going to kind of pull this through my tassel, and I'm going to grab this piece that's kind of not supposed to be here. I'm going to pull it through my tassel so that it comes down into the body of my tassel, because we don't want it kind of showing up there. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other one. I'm just going to pull my hook through, going to wrap this around and pull it through. Now if you don't have a crochet hook, you can just try shoving it in through the sides, but this is kind of my favorite way. So now you don't see that knot or the ends. Now the final thing that we're going to do, we have this knot hidden in here and we don't want it to show up, and we don't want this moving around. So I'm going to quickly tie a knot in here. I'm going to try to pull this in as close as possible to the end of my tassel head. And this can be a little bit tricky. And we have that there. So we're close to being finished. The last thing that you want to do is you want to quickly snip your ends so that they are done. Now, if your tassel ends aren't all the same length, you can just give it a quick snip with your scissors, or you can leave it like that. And then we have a completed tassel. If you want to make a tassel with yarn instead of with floss, this is going to make a larger tassel end piece. So this tassel bit is going to be larger. And so I'm going to quickly show you, but you want to do only about 10 to 15 loops around your cardboard, because otherwise this is going to be a huge end and you're not really going to want that. So we're just going to go quickly. I'll show you what one tassel with yarn looks like. Once you've completed your 15 turns around the cardboard, cut the end of the yarn. Next, we're going to measure a piece of yarn that's 10 inches long. This is going to be pulled through the center of the yarn on the cardboard and tied into a knot at the end to keep it closed. Once you've tied that knot, you can trim the ends so that there's not much leftover yarn showing. And then again, we're going to hide this knot inside the middle of the tassel. Next, you need to measure a piece of yarn that's 8 inches long. And then slowly remove the yarn from the cardboard. You slowly want to wrap the yarn around the tassel from both sides so that the yarn decreases in size on both sides. You want to hold the yarn tightly so that it doesn't fall apart. Comment below, are you team yarn or team floss? Once you've wrapped the yarn around a few times, you can tie a knot into it. Make sure you're giving it a good squeeze and pulling all the yarn through. Once that first knot is done, add a second knot to keep it all straight and so that it stays tied. Again, we're going to use our crochet hook to pull the end of this thread through the middle of the tassel. This is repeated for both pieces of the ends of that wrapped around yarn. We want to tie one final knot into the end of the tassel piece so that our knot stays hidden inside that tassel head. If you're already thinking of 5 ways to use these tassels, hit the like button so I know you want more simple projects like this. Finally, cut open the ends of the tassel so that the tassel is loose and not wrapped around itself. If there's any excess yarn at the bottom that's not the same length, just simply trim it with your scissors. Now your yarn tassel is complete. So there we have the 2 tassels. And so this floss one I went around the cardboard 30 times, and this yarn one I went around 15 times. And you'll notice how much difference there is in size. Also, the yarn, even though they were cut at the same length, I used the same template for them, the yarn is bouncier and it kind of shrinks once you let it loose. It has a lot more body than the floss one. Personally, I prefer the look of floss ones better because they are a little bit nicer and fancier looking than the yarn. But if all you have is yarn, that is totally fine as well. You can use those. And that's it. We've successfully made 2 tassels each in under 5 minutes. I hope this has given you some time to relax today. Now, if you need a craft to attach these tassels to, I've got this video here where we make some cute bookmarks that could greatly benefit from tassels. So be sure to check it out. That's it for today. Hope to see you in the next one, and happy crafting.